Welcome to Insight Plug, the podcast where independent creators and entrepreneurs connect and inspire. I'm your host, Devon Jones. Today on our show, we have director Edward Kennedy. Edward, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Devon.
Glad to have you. So this season is interesting. We have a lot of filmmakers from the UK. And being that you're a film director, if you can bring us back to the beginning on was there a film or what was the influence that sparked your idea that, okay, film directing is something that I want to do with my career?
Well, I'm in Ireland actually. So, yeah, growing up in Ireland, the very first film that I can remember going to see was with my dad a long time ago in 1984 or 1985, I think it was. And it was a film called A Never-Ending Story. I don't know if you remember it. It's an American film for kids, I think. And it was very, very good. It was great. It's a fantasy adventure film, and there was a lot of visual effects. And I remember finding it really powerful. I was about 3 or 4 years old. And when you see a film when you're that young, it can be almost disturbing the first time you see it because you don't know what's real, what's not. And I remember I couldn't get my head around, the visual effects. I didn't understand what that was. So there was a big talking wolf in the film, which terrified me. I was scared of it. And when the film ended, I don't know if this is a real memory or a fantasy memory, but I remember going down in the one of those old movie theaters. There were curtains on it, and looking behind the curtain to see if the wolf was still there. So I had no concept of film projection or what a film was or how they did it. And I also had no understanding that the film had been recorded, filmed, and edited, and that it was being projected. I thought they had to redo the whole thing every time we watched it. So this is you as a child, you don't understand. I'm sure you have a memory of seeing your first film, Devon, and it's exciting, but it's also a little bit scary.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I have a similar experience myself. Who Framed Roger Rabbit would be,
Oh yeah, I remember that was a great film.
like film.
Yeah,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
better, I think. Yeah.
All right. So that film gave you the idea. So could you take us a little bit about how did you find your first project and were you the writer on it or was it someone else's project?
Well, I started making short films in 1995, which is now 30 years ago, which shows my age a bit. And my brother Rob started making films with me. So our parents gave us a camcorder, an 8 millimeter Sony camcorder, and we were just playing around with it. It was just playing at the beginning, the way maybe people play with a musical instrument and they don't really know how. So we would make short films, silly little short films. They were always action films. We were always beating each other up in them. You'd never show them to anybody. But those were our early films. And we were very influenced by Hollywood films in Ireland growing up. That most of the films obviously were coming from Hollywood. So Star Wars, we saw over and over again. I'm sure you did. We did see Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Spielberg, E.T., the Raiders of the Lost Ark films, all of those films, Indiana Jones. Those are the ones I remember seeing. Then, yeah, so we made a bunch of awful, terrible short films, which nobody will ever see, and rightly so. And then maybe by the time we were 17, I was about 17 or 18, we made a film that I thought was quite good. It was a detective story. And I played a very corrupt cop. In Ireland, we call them guards, not cops. But, he was this very, very fat, corrupt cop. And it was sort of a comedy. And he went around, he was a horrible person, really. His name was Quinn, and he went around throwing his weight around, and he was the hero or anti-hero of this film. And that's the first one I remember us watching. We stole the music from LA Confidential, the crime film from Los Angeles. And yeah, that was the first one that I quite liked. But even then, they weren't that good. And then we continued doing them. We never stopped through our 20s. We studied film in film school. I went to a college in Dublin called Coláiste Dúlaig, which is in a kind of a rough area on the north side, but it's a great college. And my brother went to another college in a much more posh area. So I didn't get into that one. So my brother went to the nice college. And no, I went to a great college too, but it was a little bit tougher. And that was how we got started.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's interesting, right? So your first film, you had this guard who's he's heavyweight in size,
Yeah.
and you made him an anti-hero.
Yes.
What kind of led you to decide an anti-hero rather than, a traditional protagonist?
Well, I'm going to be completely honest with you. That's a good question, Devon. I had seen a film by Orson Welles. I should say one of the big influences when I started to get seriously interested in films was Orson Welles' film Citizen Kane. I loved it. And then Stanley Kubrick's films, and as I got older in my teens, and then obviously The Godfather, Francis Coppola, all those films. Films from Japan, we love Seven Samurai. It's a great action film. Those ones, that's when I really started to get serious about it. I was like, oh my God, there's so many incredible films out there. Spike Lee's films I saw from New York, Do the Right Thing. There was lots of interesting filmmakers. The reason I chose an anti-hero is because I saw a film by Orson Welles called Touch of Evil, where he played a corrupt cop and he was really, really fat. In fact, I think his name was even Quinlan. So this is a terrible ripoff, basically. And we even tried to rip off Reservoir Dogs as well, Quentin Tarantino's film. So I think when you're starting, unfortunately, and there's nothing wrong with this, you just kind of rip off other more, better filmmakers than you. And so that was grand. But then the first film that I made that got shown anywhere in New York actually was a student film I made at college called Elevator. And that's the first one that I think was sort of serious in that it got picked by a jury to be shown in the New York International Independent Film and Video Festival. I got to fly over because my dad flew us over, my mom, with my brother, and just I got see we saw the film on the big screen with an audience. It was exciting, and that was so that was Elevator was the first serious one, even though it was a comedy. It was about two guys who get trapped in an elevator at work when it breaks down and that's what that one is about. So Elevator is my first one, but before that, yeah, we would just copy other films. We even saw Braveheart, Mel Gibson's film. Mel Gibson came over here, I don't know if you know this, and he made some of Braveheart in Ireland. Even though it's set in Scotland, it's set in the UK, but he shot it here because he could get the Irish army. So the army fighting in the film is not Scots, it's actually Irish guys. And the Irish guys are also playing the English guys. Anyway, we saw Mel Gibson's set for that movie. This is like 30 years ago, and we were just like, wow, the size of it. It was huge. And so we would copy that too. We would try and copy the blood effects and fighting and all that sort of stuff. But it didn't get serious until the 2000s, I'd say, when we decided on this career.
That's an awesome experience. I love to hear that. All right. So now you have Elevator. It made it to a festival. You got to see it on the big screen. And then what's next for you after this?
After Elevator, it also got into a festival in Ireland.
All
And the
right.
weirdest thing that I learned that year, this is 2004, it wasn't a bad year. It was my kind of first little breakthrough, and that one of my films got shown. I learned that the film played better in America for some reason,
Mhm.
played in Ireland. And a few people laughed in America, and it got a little. I remember it got a cheer. Somebody hollered, and I remember going, "Thank you." Like New York was nice to me. Then I came back to Ireland. Have you heard that phrase by Jesus? A prophet is never accepted in his own country. It
Yeah.
felt like that. So I saw it in Galway, which is in the west of Ireland, and nobody laughed at my comedy. And I remember thinking, this is not good, but it's only a short film and it was a learning experience. So after that, I went back to university because I didn't have much work at all. And that was a bit of a letdown, but I had to learn that. When I came back from New York, I thought more and more, loads of people would want to make my next film. They didn't. It wasn't like that. So I went back to university then to Dublin City University and I studied, got a master's degree in film. After that, what happened was again, I think I was looking for some work. I got a little bit of work experience around then on a feature film that was funded by the Irish Film Board, which is the board that funds films here. It's now called Screen Ireland. So I had some work experience, but I wasn't really sure, Devon, what I was going to do next and I would get little jobs filming a show or something like that, but it was just once-off things. Then my brother and my friend, Andrew at the time, we all had an idea. Let's start making short films together again because we had made short films in our teens as kids, and now we were in our 20s. And I had a diploma and a master's degree. My brother had a degree. And we thought, let's just get a camera. Let's not wait around for someone to give us the money, which is the best. advice I can give your viewers. Don't sit around waiting for someone to give you the money. If somebody gives you $10,000, great. If they don't, just the digital cameras are so cheap now. And it's not expensive to have a mic or anything. You can make a film for very little money. So we made films for nothing, maybe €100, €200. And that was when we started. And what happened was those short films started getting picked up in America. America was always very good to us. And they would get shown in New York, in Los Angeles, in Kentucky, in all sorts of strange places, and all over in Oregon. And again, we thought after our films getting shown in all these festivals in America and even winning an award at a convention in New Jersey in 2009, we thought that we would get funding in Ireland because we thought that there would be less. I mean, there's more filmmakers in America, which is one of the biggest countries in the world, than there is in Ireland. Ireland is a small country, right? But we still couldn't figure out how to crack the funding thing, which, as you pointed out earlier, one of the most difficult things is raising the financing. And I would say just the best thing to do is don't always wait around for someone to give you the money. You will eventually attract the money when you've made a couple of good short films because they'll show at film festivals and people will see what you can do.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, and then so let's discuss a little bit about your projects later on. You have a
Mm.
project here called Naked.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the concept for that film, and how is that film doing?
So what happened was we really didn't go professional as filmmakers, Devon, for a very long time. And the other thing I would just pass on is it's patience. Patience is so important in the film industry. And how long can you suffer through this business for? So we suffered through our 20s. And then what happened was we made a horror film for around 10,000 called Midnight Man. And it was based on a concept that I think is a board game in America. And if you Google it, you'll read about a mythical game called Midnight Man. So that was a horror film. We made that. And what happened was some producers in Hollywood who had made a film with Matthew McConaughey, Dallas Buyers Club, if you remember that one,
Hmm, yeah.
they saw it and they liked it. So they bought the rights from us to remake our film, but in Canada, but it's an American film. So we got the very first ever American remake of an Irish film.
Hmm.
And it made the news and stuff. So we thought we were great. We thought we'd made it. It was a nice little experience. I got paid a few dollars, my brother got paid. So I now had a little bit of money. I still couldn't get the financing from the Irish Film Board, which is the government-funded Quango that makes films in Ireland. I couldn't crack that, but I had become a professional filmmaker through America because they paid us for the remake. So the American film got made, and then I had $25,000. And I decided I could go and blow that by living it up for a year or whatever. Or I just thought maybe I should make another film because if I don't, I'm kind of fucked, So I took that money and I wasn't sure what to do with it. I wanted to make a vampire film, a horror film, because we always thought there was money in horror films. However, I couldn't get the funding for the vampire film and it was a bit too big. So I started life drawing, which is just a hobby that you can do, which is drawing the figure nude. And there was a guy teaching it in Dublin, and I remember meeting the models. And it's a very strange thing if you're not used to it. Although I always enjoyed drawing and art when I was younger, you're basically all of a sudden you see a beautiful naked woman in front of you and you're drawing her. And I enjoyed the classes, and I was told I was quite good at drawing. And I managed to sell about half a dozen drawings over the years, which is not that
Wow,
many.
nice.
They're hanging up on somebody's wall somewhere in France. Anyway, I remember thinking, hang on a second. Has anybody ever documented these models? Has anybody ever told their story? We always see this documentary about the artist, like Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci, but we never hear about the models, these people who get naked. What's their story? So I met with the models and there were, in the end, three ladies I met with and one man. There's not that many men in it because women, for obvious reasons, are more popular, in the classes. So I said, would you be interested in being in a film? about this, and you could tell us your story. And all of them said yes. There were one or two guys who said no. And I found out that men are more shy about appearing naked in a film than women are. Women do not seem to care, as far as I could see. So we ended up going with three models in the film. We interviewed four, but we cut it down to three. And they told us what it was like the first time they dropped the robe, as a model. And so the film is about life modeling. It's about the relationship between the model and the artist. And we interviewed them, these two women and one man, and we ended up talking about body image because almost everybody has something about their body they don't like. Even maybe the Mr. Universe, whoever he is now, I'm sure there's something he doesn't like. And everybody is interested, I think, in nudity. People are just curious about it, you know? And so I made that film, and a lot of things were quite lucky about the film in the sense that I didn't have the money for music. It was made on a budget of around 15,000. And so what happened was I wanted Beethoven in the film. And some people came to Dublin and did a charity concert for Beethoven, which was unbelievable good luck for me because I just went and recorded them for free. So a lot of things came together, Devon, and then we finished the film. And this is the truth. This is not the happiest part of the story. We finished the film and we sent it out to about 10 film festivals. We sent it to Cannes, we sent it to festivals in America, and every single festival turned it down. And I was very depressed. And I remember thinking, have I made a terrible film? Or I thought it was quite good. Then what happened was I started sending it directly to film distributors because I'd sunk all of my cash into this film at the time. So I got turned down about what I remember is about 70 times, which was also not fun. And at this point, it was the end of 2018, and I was pretty depressed about my little film. And I remember thinking, well, maybe I should have stuck to horror. The horror did very well. Then I got an email out of the blue from an English distributor in the UK, next door, and he said, "We saw your film, and we think it's quite an insightful documentary into life models, and we'd like to take it on." And I remember exactly where I was. I was outside this room there, and I was outside the kitchen. And I remember thinking, holy shit. In fact, I did say, holy shit, I finally have a deal. So I called up the guy. We talked, and I couldn't lie to him. I think he kind of knew. Nobody else in the world was offering to release the film. No one in America, no one in Europe, mainland Europe. In Germany, one woman told me that the film could never be released, ever. So the English took it on, they released it, and I had to go back and email the German lady, and I just said to her, can I just tell you that we do have a distribution deal? And I remember she said, really? Who? And I said, oh, it's a company in Great Britain. You've heard of them. And I was just stirring the pot a little bit, but I couldn't help it. And I said, yeah, we have a deal. So the film came out, and it was released on Prime Video, but it's pay-per-view as a special interest documentary. It was released on Apple TV, where you can get it now. It's on Vimeo, which I think is the cheapest and the highest quality, and I think it's on Google TV. And the film, the best-selling market is in America. It's done really well over there for anybody who's interested in body image and in modeling and art. And it's actually it's actually going to turn a profit, which is really cool because it's being shown in educational screenings. One more in America in May, and then it's being shown in Australia, in India, in Italy, in Spain. And the weirdest thing is, it doesn't matter what language you speak. You could be American, you could be British, you could be Irish, you could be Spanish, you could be Indian. I think even people from Africa are fascinated by it. It's just it's traveled. So, and we got a great review. We got a wonderful review in Film Ireland. But the moral of the story is never give up, because remember, 6 months earlier, before I got that deal, every single film festival turned it down. And I, to this day, don't know why, but it was the year after Me Too. And there was a lot of nudity in our film. So maybe it just wasn't the right film for 2018. So the only thing I can pass on is never give up. Film festivals aren't the be all and end all. You can contact film distributors and ask them to release it yourself, and they did.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, that is so true. It could have been a possibility with that Me Too movement that kind of hindered it a little bit, but hey, sometimes you have to be patient and to not give up. And with those results, boom, you have it playing all over the place, and
True.
it turned out great for you. And I love to hear that. And where you said that people can find this film at?
So Naked in America is available on Prime Video. I think you have to rent it or buy it. It's not in the free library, but so it's on Prime Video. It's on Apple TV, which is a good place to get it. And again, you can rent it for a few dollars or buy it. And then it's on Vimeo, which is actually a really good streaming platform. And I think you can rent it there for real cheap. Like it's only about €2 on that one, and it's highest quality on Vimeo. And it's also on Google TV, which I don't use, but is another one. So it's available on all those platforms.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so let's talk about this project now. This one is called Who Can Find a Good Wife?
Yeah,
Can you share a little bit about this project and how did you come about? And you're acting in this one.
I am.
Um,
Yeah. Well, I should tell you, when I set up this company, it was during COVID-19 and 2020. And I wanted to make a murder mystery film because this is one of my knucklehead ideas, but I thought that like horror films, which we did well enough with, and people like to see murder mystery films. And Knives Out had just come out with Daniel Craig. So I thought, yeah, clearly this is a commercial thing to do. The only thing I would share with the filmmakers watching and listening is that's not always the best place to start with. It's not always best to think what will sell because you don't know ever what will sell. That's what I've learned. So I'm not sure if I was coming from the right place when I wrote that script, but I wrote a script called Archie the Parrot, and it took many years, and it's a murder mystery film about a parrot that witnesses a murder. And people might laugh at this, but in America, where everything seems to happen, this did happen. There was a murder some years ago, and if you search on YouTube, you'll find it, where a man was killed, I believe, by his wife, and the parrot witnessed it, and he repeated the victim's last words before he was shot. And it was quite chilling. You can hear the bird repeating him. And I remember thinking, my God, that sounds like a murder mystery that I've never seen before. So I wrote this script and I'm going to tell the story that maybe other filmmakers always leave out, but I think it's important to. I got rejected by, I think, every single company in Ireland. And then I sent it over to the UK next door. And I think every single company there turned it down. So again, feeling a little bit depressed as one does. There are up years and down years. My film Naked had done well. The remake of Midnight Man was out. And I'd executive produced a horror film with Mina Suvari that my brother wrote, which was also made in America called The Accursed. And you can get that on Apple TV too, if you like horror films. So that had come out, but I wanted to get the money for my murder mystery film, Archie the Parrot, and I couldn't get it. This is some few years ago. So since then, I have found a producer in California who likes the script, and I'm talking with her about it. So that's good. And having said that, I'm still waiting for a green light for that. So while I was waiting last year, I think it was around October, I had a grant from the government here in Ireland, and it's actually the first grant of its kind in the world. It's called the Basic Income Arts Grant, and I actually think it's a great idea that other countries, maybe the US, the UK, Spain, they should all give it a go. But basically, the idea is pay filmmakers a basic grant, a basic income to live as an artist. And with this grant, I thought I'd just written a script and I'd written a TV show, but I thought I should really make a film before this grant runs out because it ends later this year. And I had received a text message from a young actress called Erin here in Dublin earlier last year, and I thought it was interesting that she reached out to me. I didn't know who she was. And she said, I'm a big fan of your work. I don't think she'd seen anything, but she wanted to work. And so I thought, remember that girl that wanted to work with you? Maybe you should meet with her. So I emailed her and she agreed to meet me. And I met her in Dublin and we had a coffee. And the way I like to work with people is I just like to have a coffee and hang out and see how we get along. So um, out of that meeting, I chose to write a script called "Who Can Find a Good Wife?" And that question is in the Bible. It's in a book called Proverbs, and there's a whole passage about what a good wife is. She's more precious than jewels. Her husband can always trust in her, and she stays with him all the days of his life. And it's a beautiful passage in the book. And it got me thinking, my brother's married and my sister is married, but I'm not. And I started thinking, what is a good wife? And how does one find a good wife? So I ended up with this story, two sisters. And this actress, Erin, plays the younger one, Fola. And then you have a slightly older sister called Fia. And in our film, they're both half sisters. So they have the same mother, but they have different fathers. And they're about 5 years apart. So they're both in college. And the older sister, who's played by an actress called Nancy Collins, um, Fia, she is in a relationship with an English guy called Rockwood. And I play him. And then her younger sister becomes interested in my character, Rock. So what happens is two sisters both fall in love with the same man. And that's the starting point for our film. It's a comedy. And how do you solve that problem? That's what we have.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. Can't wait to see it when it comes out. All right, we're at the part of the episode where I'll ask this question. What is a TV show, a book, or a film that you recommend to new filmmakers?
Oh my God, difficult question. Okay, off the top of my head, I'm going to can I pick a few films, just some of my favorites?
Sure, yeah.
Uh, I would always recommend watching Citizen Kane, Orson Welles film. It's a great American film from 1941, but it's just such an incredible film, which is firing on all cylinders, script, cinematography, direction, acting. So I'd always recommend Citizen Kane. If you, I would recommend Honora, the recent film that won Best Picture and Palme d'Or at Cannes. I think it's terrific. What else? I would recommend a not a very well-known film, perhaps in America, but it's a French film and it's called La Règle du Jeu, and it means the rules of the game. And that's from, I think, 1939. That's a really interesting film. Off the top of my head, if I can pick one from Japan, I'd recommend maybe Seven Samurai, which is a masterpiece, and another film from Japan called Yugetsu Monogatari. It's so hard to, those are just some that I would recommend. And maybe a film from Italy, Eight and a Half by Fellini, which is about a film director who's struggling with kind of director's block and he's anxious about his film. And I think that film shows you what an awful experience it is making a film, but it's entertaining to watch. Um, a book I'd recommend. Okay, again, I might go with two. There's a book of interviews with Steven Spielberg called Spielberg. I think it's Spielberg on Spielberg, or the interviews with Steven Spielberg. It's from the 1970s, so it's from early on in his career. His interviews are very good. I recommend that one because there's a nugget of information he shares. He was asked the question, "What got you to where you are now?" And this was when he had done Jaws and I think Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And his answer was really good, I think. It's very helpful, which I'll share with you, was make a short film or two, do a lot of writing, and if you're a ham, act in it, which I'm guilty of, guilty as charged for acting in my film, and people will decide whether or not I should ever do it again. But that book by Spielberg, and there's another book called The Making of Citizen Kane by Robert Carringer. And that book goes over the whole experience of that film. It nearly never got made. The film nearly got cancelled. just before it went into production. So I think that's a great film, a great book, and a great film to read because to watch. But the book just shows you that films are a miracle. That film nearly got cancelled because the subject matter was controversial at the time. So those are the main ones. A TV show that I would recommend, Twin Peaks.
Nice. Well, those are all great choices, and I appreciate you sharing that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's our episode for today. If you love what you're hearing, don't forget to check out our previous episodes. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Inside Plug with two G's. Today we had director Edward Kennedy. Edward, thank you for sharing your story, and we look forward to checking out your projects. The project Naked is available right now, and then also Who Can Find a Good Wife is coming out soon. Ladies and gentlemen, that was an episode of Inside Plug. Stay inspired and keep creating. Inside Plug, signing out.